much money, but he still has to give his daughter opium, and he says that opium is much cheaper than a painkiller that you get in a chemist. And he says you just need a tiny little bit of opium to ease the pain. It's very strong.
The families I met were left to fend for themselves. Government doctors rarely come to the camp, and too few aid agencies are equipped to deal with child addicts. I wanted to find out the extent of drug use outside the capital. We headed 300 miles north to Badakhshan, one of the most remote and poorest areas of Afghanistan.
You can see just how isolated this area is. In the last 5 hours we've been driving. We've only passed a couple of cars. Every now and again you can see a village dotted in the mountains. And for 6 months a year, most of this area is completely cut off from the outside world when it snows during winter.
Criminal cartels, insurgent groups and corrupt government officials reportedly smuggle a quarter of all Afghan heroin through these valleys into neighbouring countries. The province also used to be one of the main opium poppy growing areas until an attempted eradication campaign. We went to a former opium farming village, Razrak, to find out what had happened since then.
Salam alaikum. خوشحال شدم. رامیتا هستم. سلام علیکم. مشکلات بزرگ چی ان اینجا؟
Chief Dwabeg told me there were 400 people in his village, and now all of them used opium.
He says we've got so many problems in this village, but our biggest problem is drugs. We've got so many villagers who are addicted. Men, women, and even the children of our village are all addicted to drugs.
We were taken to meet a family.
Salam alaikum. Salam alaikum. Naam man Ramita hast.
Talib Shah and his wife Mary Nagar told me out of their 6 children, 3 of them were opium addicts. 11-year-old Sangin Mamad had been smoking the drug since he was 3 years old.
As soon as his dad said, it's time to smoke, he jumped up, he knew exactly what to do. He just put his head on the pillow and he lay down here, and he's just waiting for his dad to give him opium.
Talib Shah explained his son has to smoke 3 times a day, otherwise he suffers from painful withdrawal symptoms.
I'm just talking to Sangin Mamad, and it's really sad because he's just a little boy, but he's just out of it. He's talking to me in a whisper, you just saw, and he says that when he doesn't smoke, he feels real pain. And I asked him, do you ever go out and play with the kids, play with other kids? And he said, no, I'm just in pain.
Mary Nagar originally gave her son opium to cure a stomachache, but now the family take the drug for a very different reason.
Mary Nagar says there's not enough food to feed the whole family, and when you smoke opium, you lose your appetite. Why don't you spend your money on food rather than opium?
Talib Shah said food was more expensive than opium.
To feed the whole family for a day costs about £3, but to buy about this much opium, which lasts a day, costs about £2. And when they take this, they feel less hungry, so they eat less. Do you have food in the house now? Mary Nagar just brought me over to show me what food they've got to eat tonight. There's this flask of tea and just these 2 pieces of dried old bread. And this is to feed 9 people in this family. Mary Nagar saying this bread is all we've got. We've got nothing. No meat, no fruit, no vegetables. Hichi, nothing.
Outside, Dwabeg said they used to make enough money from growing opium to buy food. But since the government destroyed their opium crops, they had lost their livelihoods. Along with not being able to provide themselves with food, He said they no longer could afford basic medicine. Opium here is the answer to everything.
They rely on drug dealers that come round from village to village, he says, selling the drugs, and they service the whole area.
Joabek said what worried him the most was the rising number of child addicts in the village.
The chief said it will be a disaster if the children of the village are not treated for drug addiction.
Access to drug rehabilitation in Afghanistan is severely limited. There's only one centre in Kabul that helps children. Funded by the US State Department, Sangha-e-Maj was originally set up to treat women. But recently, patients were turning up with their children, who were also addicts. There's only room for 20 children. For the first part of the treatment, they're forced off the drugs, a process known as cold turkey. This causes excruciating headaches, joint pain, vomiting and shivering. I was taken to see a new arrival, 9-year-old Qalandar.
This little boy has just arrived today. Today will be his first day in detox, his first day of withdrawal, and he's addicted to opium. And you can see he doesn't look very happy, he doesn't look very well, and you can see it in his eyes.
The children here were at varying stages of their 45-day treatment. Most of them were from poor families whose parents had heard of the centre through word of mouth.
چند سالشونه؟
10 سال. یا برادراستن یا غیر مستقیم است.
The teacher's just been going along the row of children, telling me how old these children are, what they're addicted to. All of these little children on this row are addicted to heroin. It's just incredible, they're so young. It's hard to believe that we're in a room full of drug addicts and they're all toddlers and tiny, small children.
I spoke to some of the children about their experience.
These little boys are in detox right now. It's only their third day.
I asked 5-year-old Yahya if he knew why he was here.
Yahya said that I'm here to kick the habit because I'm on powder. He means heroin.
Rahullah explained why his little brother had been taught to smoke heroin.
He says that he was given it because he had toothache. He says that his addiction got so bad that he'd cry when he didn't have it and he'd start chewing old bags of heroin.
12-year-old Chaman became addicted by inhaling her father's heroin smoke.
I asked her if giving up was hard and she said, it was really hard. It took a week and the whole of my body burnt and ached.
One of the doctors, Latifa Hamidi, said in the past 2 years there'd been a 60% increase in the number of child addicts turning up. She told me the future of the country was at stake.
The doctor says there's going to be a generation of drug addicts that need help, that aren't going to be able to work.
Chaman was at the end of her treatment and was now being allowed to return home. Her mother Layla had come to pick her up.
You can see that Chaman is smiling now. She was crying when she left the centre. That's because she's just found out that her father's not home.
Chaman's father became addicted to heroin while working in Iran. When he smoked at home, drug dependency spread through the family. Even Chaman's 1.5-year-old brother was affected. Layla told me Chaman had already completed rehab once before, but it had failed.
She went, first of all, when the whole family went, but she was affected by it yet again when Layla's husband returned.
Chaman and her family appear to be stuck in a vicious cycle. They know that when the father returns, they'll become addicts again.
All Chaman wishes for in her future is that her father stops using heroin. She says, I just want him to get better.
UK aid to Afghanistan is being increased by 40%. None of it is currently dedicated to any drug treatment programs. While the world's focus is on the fight against the Taliban, Afghanistan is being consumed from within by an equally serious and long-term threat. If you want to find out more about drug addiction in Afghanistan or any other issue covered on Unreported World, please visit our website at Channel 4.